If you were to ask me, I would say I have now somewhat solidified myself in the anime community. With that, you meet a bunch of really cool people, but that also entails some of them being elitists. And there's one thing I've learned being in contact with said elitists is this, that there are a number of shows they can always make time to talk about, like Ping Pong for example. But there's one in particular I haven't been able to shake, and that show is Aria. I honestly have no idea why so many people, elitist and otherwise, love this show so much, so I decided to pick it up and make a review on it. So here's my review on a show, strangely enough, loved by many in the anime community, Aria. Hidan no Aria, that is. Hidan no Aria is about a boy named Kenji. Kenji attends a school known as Butte High. However, he doesn't want to be a student there and vows to transfer out because he no longer wants to be a Butte based on the things that happened in his past. But Kenji has something that makes him special, and that is he turns into an ace killer when turned on by the female form. This triggers a desire in a transfer student named Aria to make him her partner. Based on that description, one will probably think the show will be riddled with ecchi taking every opportunity it can to objectify the characters as justification for unleashing Kenji's hidden potential. And as someone who's not a fan of ecchi, I would have been extremely disappointed by that outcome. But one thing the show does I did not see coming was this show for the most part was very low on the amount of ecchi used, namely in the more serious scenes. In the action scenes, a place where I presume will be ruined at every turn based on the description of Kenji's ability, they actually implemented this ability in a way that didn't take away from what was happening. How did they do this? Instead of a wardrobe malfunction or anything that would normally make Aria or any other of Kenji's friends, nothing more than an ecchi play gateway for Kenji's powers to activate, it is usually done through more serious means, and they carry a more serious tone in these occurrences. I believe that this show took Kenji's special ability and used it in the most serious way possible given what they had, and as such I respect this show a lot more than I originally thought I would. But that doesn't go without saying that it really is a sad thing that this is the best aspect of the story as a whole. The story for Hidan no Aria suffers from a huge case of identity crisis, trying its hardest to be things it's not or never was meant to be. I feel like the creators of this show tried to make it more than what it was, and it really did nothing but fall flat on its face. The main concept of the show at the very beginning was catching a person known as the Butte Killer, and from there I thought I had a good grasp of where the story was going to go. But I was immediately thrown for an unexpected and unnecessary loop when the show takes a completely different turn. In the matter of an episode, the show tries to add to what's going on by adding a wide variety of unnecessary things, the best example being the unjustified superpowers or espers given to some characters throughout the show. The show completely neglects to elaborate on where these abilities come from or any backstory or details regarding these mysterious powers. One can only assume that they are born with them, and even then there's no clear answer. This show also tries to add a twist where certain characters are descendants of famous people in history such as Sherlock Holmes or Joan of Arc. Now I'm usually a fan of things like this in anime when history is explored and used as a plot point or driving factor, but this show gives no details and leaves out all information regarding this. The idea to add this factor into the mix just seemed like a forced way to make this show more interesting or to give the characters motivation or justification for the things they do. It just seemed to me as a whole the show really didn't know what it wanted or what it was supposed to be. It tried to be many things at once, but failed miserably. It would have been fine sticking with the bare essentials and focusing more on one thing rather than adding all these side factors that do nothing but make it harder to focus on the issues at hand. As I said before, it's kind of a sad thing when the greatest aspect of the story is the lack of ecchi. Finally, the last episode was the worst final episode I've seen in anime. Not the worst ending, mind you, no, there is a special place for those two shows, but the last episode is laughably unrelated to anything at all and it's completely skippable. In fact, I recommend you do so. After watching this failed attempt, I find it hard to believe that so many people out there told me to watch this show. Let's see what Anime Everyday has to say about Aria in this clip from his top 10 favorite anime of all time, where he puts Aria at number 4.
Aria. Just Aria. I literally have nothing negative to say. In fact, it's very hard to think of things to say. Aria is one of the most inexplainably great pieces of art I've ever experienced. The series is a journey more immersive than any other anime, more atmospheric, more peaceful. The series has everything. It's 2 amazing seasons and a 3rd season that I can only describe as a masterpiece. The emotion, attachment and bond you feel with the characters in the world are indescribable. All I can say is watch Aria. Experience it yourself. I can say no words that truly represent the show.
The characters in Hidan no Aria, if you can call them that, are lacking and disappointing. For the majority, all each character really has is one driving factor to use as motivation and a very minimal amount of backstory. Starting off with our main character, we have Kenji Toyama. His main objective throughout the show is to quit Butte and live a normal life by transferring into a normal high school. But Kenji has a special ability that turns him into an ace killer when he's turned on by the female form. Kenji as a whole felt empty. He has very minimal backstory, only to drive his motivation to quit being a Butte. His brother was killed in an accident while performing his Butte duties, and this is why he wants to leave. We later find out that his brother is still alive. Naturally, this got my attention, but it was immediately forgotten, and we literally never hear mention of it again, nor do we get any confirmation one way or the other. His development is very minimal and makes him a very lackluster main character. Our main female lead is Aria. Aria Holmes Kanzaki is an exchange student from England and an S-rank Butte, so she's an expert at what she does. Aria, like Kinji, has some backstory, but it's not explored upon in any sense. Aria's mother is put in jail, being framed for the aforementioned Butte killer. Why or how she was mistaken for the Butte killer, the show neglects to tell us, but that's not a first. Aria makes a visit to jail to see her mother, and it's a very touching moment and gives us a valid reason to do what she does, but sadly her mother never makes another appearance and is immediately forgotten. So as usual, the show gave us something to go on and only takes it away immediately afterwards. Aria is also a descendant of the Holmes family, but of course sadly the show doesn't really relate that to anything in the show, other than a reason for the next character to be evil. Riko Mine is a consistent adversary to Aria throughout the show. She is a descendant of Arsene Lupin, and her motivation is to beat the descendant of Holmes, Aria, to prove that she is superior to her ancestors. That motivation in and of itself is really as deep as Riko gets. She has somewhat of an inferiority complex concerning the first Lupin and wants to escape his shadow. She's given the minimal amount of backstory, but not enough to really make a difference. The last character I will go over, and the one who holds the title of best girl, is Shirayuki Hotogi. She's a shrine maiden, forced to never leave the shrine or Butte High School without permission, and that's basically her whole spiel. Because of that, she could never leave the shrine as a kid and was teased for being a metaphorical bird in the cage. What makes her the best character in Hidan no Aria, in my opinion, is the fact that she has enough backstory to make her likable, and the details are never forgotten, and that doesn't rely on anything else to make her character what it is, like being a descendant of someone in history, for instance. The rest of the characters are laughable and forgettable. There's the perverted best friend, the emotionless sniper, and Saber version 2, Joan of Arc edition. The characters for Aria have minimal backstory, overshadowed by all the unnecessary things the show introduces, and the times where this is not the case, the ideals or driving motivational factors are forgotten or not elaborated upon, and these things make the characters for Aria highly lackluster and nothing to write home about in the slightest. So why do so many people say such great things about the characters for Aria? Let's hear Mr. Reckless Penguin's thoughts on the characters of Aria with this clip from his top 25 favorite anime, where he puts Aria at number 2.
And the character development and characterization is very subtle but rewarding in the end. The characters by the end of Aria have gained from their experiences and changed as people, gaining development gradually throughout each episode.
The art and animation for Aria is nothing really special. JC Staff did a good job of making a somewhat consistent show, but there were really no standout moments within the animation or art itself. The action scenes seemed to flow fairly well, and there was nothing that was really distracting about the animation. While I can't say too many bad things about it, I can't say much good either. The art and animation was just barely above par for me overall, but just scraping by. The sound for Hidan no Aria was decent. As per the usual, as someone who doesn't take sound into consideration, I really only notice soundtracks when they're either really good or really bad. It's safe to say they didn't notice the soundtrack at all, meaning it did its job well enough for me. But on the inverse side of things, there were no standouts. The opening was good and fairly catchy, but only just, being forgettable and skippable in the latter half of the show. However, in terms of the sound effects, the show was definitely in the wrong with one particular I could not shake: the shooting sound. In some instances, not all but some, there was one sound effect that I could probably open up on YouTube and find, and every time it occurs it bothers me to no end. If I can find it, I'll play it right now. As for the voice actors for the sub, they played their roles well enough. My only complaint is Aria's voice actor being slightly annoying, but I shouldn't say too much because I suppose it does fit the character. Overall, after finally watching Aria, I really don't understand why I was told so many times by so many people to watch the show. The story suffers from a huge case of identity crisis, introducing too many things to spice up the story only to fall flat and hurt more than it helps in the end. The characters themselves had a minimal amount of backstory, but most were forgotten, and character motivation was placed on the shoulders of the idea that characters were descendants of people in history, which as it stands in the show doesn't sit too well with me. The animation was barely above par, and the sound was just average with decent, albeit unnoticeable / forgettable soundtrack. I was wondering what so many people see in this show, so I decided to take it directly from the horse's mouth. So I asked GB Trolling Me to give me his opinions on Aria and why he likes the show so much. Just tell me what you think about Aria, like characters, story. Just give me a rundown.
Okay, before I do this, are you trying to make like a top list about slice of life or something?
No.
But you, okay. I like Aria. Alright. I like Aria. I think it's a good show. I think the characters are pretty well done. They all develop very subtly over time. The world's pretty interesting. The shots are nice, and the soundtrack gels really well with the atmosphere.
Needless to say, I don't agree as per the usual, but to each their own. And I also can't seem to find the other seasons, no matter how hard I look on Mal. So that wraps it up for my review on Hidan no Aria, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Of course, this is all in the name of comedy. You know, I actually do plan on watching Aria fairly soon for everybody who's curious. The real Aria, not this garbage. But yeah, I mainly did this because, you know, as a joke, mainly to the people who told me to watch Aria, and because I figured it was about time for me to review a show that I didn't think was too good. I usually review shows that are either above average or that I think are really good, so it's a really nice change of pace to review a show that I don't think is very good. So, again, hope you guys enjoy. Leave a like if you did, and yeah, remember, this is all in the name of a joke, people. I don't actually think this is the real Aria people were telling me to watch. So, leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.